My cousin Nate has been in the Coast Guard for more than a decade, and he's the last person I'd expect to exaggerate or invent stories. He's not superstitious, doesn't care for horror, and is about as practical as they come. In the summer of 2022, he told me something that happened to him back in 2017, and it rattled me so much I had him repeat it several times. His story never changed. That year, he was sent to a remote lighthouse called Montauk Rock off the coast of Maine. The island was nothing more than jagged stone with one lighthouse and a small supply building. No plumbing, no power grid, almost no cell service. The beacon was automated, but the Coast Guard sent people out for maintenance once a year. Normally, it was a solo job, but because of electrical failures the year before, they sent Nate along with another guy named Russell. The first few days were routine. They checked the beacon mechanics, tested backup batteries, refilled the generator, and scraped corrosion. At night, they read, ate, and played cards. It was isolated, sure, but predictable. On the fourth night, Nate woke around 2 a.m. with an odd heaviness in the air, like the stillness before a thunderstorm, except the sky was clear. Then he noticed the light wasn't turning. He shook Russell awake, and they climbed to the beacon room. The gears were moving, but a wet piece of fabric, like a coat or blanket, was jammed inside. It stank of mildew and seaweed. The room had been locked, the windows sealed, and there was no explanation. They threw it outside and went back to bed, thinking it was a one-time fluke. The following night, the same thing happened. This time it was a red, frayed scarf, soaked in seawater with small crustaceans still clinging to it. That's when Nate realized it wasn't coincidence. They checked every door and window, but everything was secure. They started blocking the stairwell with heavy crates and locking up obsessively. On the seventh night, Nate heard Russell whispering in the dark. He was speaking to the corner of the room, muttering disconnected phrases. When Nate asked, Russell claimed he hadn't said anything. Later, Nate found him sitting at the window, staring down at the rocks. Russell insisted he had seen someone standing there the night before, barely visible in the edge of the beacon's glow. After that, Russell deteriorated. He barely slept, hardly spoke, and kept muttering about noises in the walls and voices in the stairwell. On the ninth night, they both heard footsteps on the spiral stairs. Not wind or creaking, slow, deliberate footsteps coming from above. Neither of them had gone up there. They stood frozen until the sound stopped, then shoved a dresser against their door and slept with knives under their pillows. 2 nights later, the beacon failed again. This time the beacon room door was wide open, as if it had been kicked in. The bulb itself had been unscrewed and placed upright in the middle of the floor. It was industrial grade. Removing it took effort. As Nate stared, something cold brushed his back. He spun around, but no one was there. Russell went pale and whispered that he saw a hand reaching out of the wall. They ran downstairs, locked themselves in, and waited out the night. Russell rocked in the corner, muttering to someone invisible. At daybreak, Nate used the satellite phone to request an early pickup, claiming mechanical failure. The boat came that afternoon, but the crew asked them about the distress call they had made at 2:12 a.m. Nate swore he hadn't touched the phone until morning. The deckhand said they'd received a static-filled transmission with a voice saying someone else was there with them before cutting out. Russell stayed silent the entire ride back. A few months later, he quit the Coast Guard without explanation. Nate still serves, but he swears he'll never set foot on Montauk Rock again. During lockdown in 2020, I had my own strange encounter of a different kind. Everyone was restless, stuck inside with nothing to do. I was single at the time, swiping through Tinder and chatting with people just to kill time. That's how I ended up reconnecting with a girl I followed on Instagram for years, named Sophia, though she went by Soph. We both lived in Suffolk County, Long Island, only minutes from each other. One night we were bored and decided to hang out. I picked her up and we drove to a closed park to drink White Claws. She was adventurous, rebellious in a fun way, willing to trespass or take risks. Within an hour, she suggested we drive out to Montauk to walk the cliffs near the lighthouse. Technically, the grounds were closed at night, but she was confident we'd have no trouble. I agreed, and we drove east. When we arrived, the parking lot was empty. She told me to park there anyway, and we shared another drink before heading to the cliffs. Seeing the lighthouse up close at night was eerie and strange, almost liminal. She led us to the cliff walk behind the lighthouse, and we navigated the rocks by flashlight. As we walked, she suddenly said my name and pointed her light back. There was a man on the rocks behind us, wearing a hooded coat. He didn't move or answer when I called out, but eventually he asked if we wanted to buy Coke. It wasn't security, it was just some random guy. That was even worse. We declined and tried to keep moving, but he followed, always keeping the same distance. Every time I glanced back, he was there, silent. By the time we reached the end of the path and turned back, the tension was unbearable. He followed us toward the car, and then two more men appeared behind us. My pulse spiked. We didn't run, afraid it would trigger a chase, but we hurried. They called things out to us, though I couldn't make out the words. By the time we reached my car, all three were right on top of us. Two tried the doors as soon as we shut ourselves inside. I locked everything and threw the car in reverse, jerking backward while they pounded on the doors and kicked the sides. Once we were moving, they didn't give chase, but the adrenaline left us shaken and silent. I dropped Soph off soon after, and though we hung out many times later, that night still unnerves me. It felt too close to something dangerous, like one wrong move would have ended badly. Some friends think it was a gang, maybe the Crips. Whatever it was, I have no interest in going back to Montauk Lighthouse after dark.